Thank you to Sherry and Rick for that song Vision. You know, as soon as Sherry shared the lyrics of that song with me, I knew I needed that song for today. We're talking all about vision today, so thank you to what an amazing music team that we have. So thanks to Sherry and Rick once again. Well, we are on step 4 of our book from May McCarthy, The Path to Wealth. 7 spiritual steps for financial abundance. They can be yours too. So in the introduction, we introduced you to your CSO, that's your Chief Spiritual Officer, and to make a time commitment to meet with that CSO every single day. And then step 1 was to read something inspirational. So you can remember that just like other people who have tapped into their higher power, their CSO, you too can do the same and manifest your life to be however you want it to look. And then step 2 was to write a gratitude letter to your CSO as part of that daily meeting and to live a life of gratitude, because we know from gratitude just grows more gratitude. And if you see that you already have it in your mind's eye, that's what happens. And then step 3 last week, Reverend Sherry talked about the power of our words and how if we read that gratitude letter out loud, then our subconscious gets it, and again, we manifest our good. So today we are on, again, step 4, and today is all about imagining experiencing your good. Imagining experiencing your good. Now, last Sunday, so after church and after fellowship, I like to read the Sunday funnies, the Sunday comics, and I had to share this week's with you. And I think Sherry Hersey's going to put them up here on the screen for us. But Pearls Before Swine. Does anyone know this comic strip? Pearls Before Swine. It's about a pig and a rat and a ram and a couple other fun characters too. But here's what it says. I had to share it with you. So the ram says, "Are you worried about being able to pay your rent?" And the pig says, "What day is today?" And the ram says, "Sunday." And pig says, "Oh no, Sundays I worry about getting the virus. Mondays I worry about the economy failing. Tuesdays I worry about racism. Wednesday I worry about the planet. Thursdays I worry about losing my health care. Fridays I started to save just for murder hornets, those giant hornets that are coming to kill us all. Oh wait, Saturdays I worry about losing my job. So sure, I can fit that in on Saturday." And the ram says, "Quite the era." And pig says, "My worry schedule is packed." Well, that has been about it for all of us these last 7 months. So I don't know how many of you have a worry schedule or have had a worry schedule, but it's time for us to put our worry schedules down and start to re-envision our life. Even in the chaos of 2020, in the craziness of 2020, we are now going to watch our thoughts, because we know that they influence what shows up in our life. Our thoughts influence the vision we have for our life. Our thoughts produce our reality. And so we're going to put down our worry schedules. I had to share with you because visioning, so now what we're finding with this book, I know a lot of you have mentioned to me, is that we're finding a lot of those old New Thought teachings that we've been doing forever. And you're right, it's packaged in a new way. I actually love how it's packaged. I like 7 easy steps that I can do. So for me, this is great. I love that she puts it in a fun way with the CSO meetings. But we know that our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, talked about in the 12 Spiritual Powers, he talked about the power of imagination. So look at this book that I found. You know what? I've had this book, I think, since I went to Unity of North Hollywood when I was a child, or a teenager at least. Look how old this book is, everyone. I just love it. We even had a little library. So I've had this book for a long time. But it's Charles Fillmore's The 12 Powers of Man. And I put a little sticky note there for the power of imagination, because I wanted to read this and share this with you all today. This is what he says, Charles Fillmore, in the 12 Powers of Man. When the faculties of the mind are understood in their threefold relation, spirit, soul, body, it will be found that every form and shape originated in the imagination. Every form and shape originated in the imagination. It is through the imagination that the formless takes form. It is well known that the artist sees in mind every picture that he puts on canvas. Every picture that he puts on canvas. And then later on, he goes on to say, forms are always manifestation of ideas. Forms are always manifestation of ideas. Whoa, right? But we know that to be true. We know it to be true because we know, just like he's saying, that the artist sees it in their mind first and then they put it on paper or on that canvas or in the photograph. We know engineers, when they're thinking about creating a building, they see it in their mind first, then they get it on paper, or now probably in computers, and then they build the building, or then they make the freeway. We see it in so many different areas of life. And I really started thinking about Olympic and professional athletes. I shared this in our Path to Wealth study group, our private study group that anyone can join. It's private, but it's open to everyone. This podcast I just recently heard. The podcast was 10% Happier is what it's called, 10% Happier. Highly recommend it if you want to be 10% happier. And on this particular episode, the interview was with an Olympic athlete, skier, but also a big mountain skier by the name of Angel Collinson. I want to say Collision because I keep thinking of a big mountain in Collision, but it's Angel Collinson is her name. And big mountain skiing, I didn't really know it was called this, but big mountain skiing is when a helicopter has to take you to the top of the mountain and then you find your path, you create your own ski path down. This is something I personally will never do. But Angel Collinson, she does this and she gets paid for it too. And so she was saying in this podcast that she stands at the bottom of the mountain beforehand and she looks up and she envisions every single part of that skiing path from the top of the mountain to the bottom. She sees, she may see a cliff and she'll think about, okay, how am I going to navigate that cliff? She may see where the parts are going to get a little tricky and there might be a little danger there. She envisions it all before she gets dropped off by helicopter at the top of the mountain. And she said that once she gets to the top of the mountain, she may be skiing and then all of a sudden that cliff is much bigger than it looked from the bottom of the hill. But that's okay because she said what she does is she uses her meditation practice. She uses her mindfulness practice to bring her back to the moment, back to the present moment, and back to that tape that she played several times over in her head, what she imagined, what she visioned, and it gets her right down back in line. There could be a mini avalanche starting. No joke, not making it up. Mini avalanche starting. But she knows, okay, I'm going to breathe and stay in the moment. And I've envisioned this, so I'm going to navigate around this and get to the bottom. And that's how she's successful. That's how she successfully gets to the bottom, is she's already envisioned it. And so she returns to a mindfulness practice and back to that visioning practice in order to get her successfully down the mountain. Well, I know that Michael Phelps, Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer, the most decorated Olympian, 22 Olympic medals, 18 of those are gold. And I knew he used visioning. So I wanted to look further. I went into a deep dive after I read or heard this podcast with Angel. And so I looked at a sports psychology blog that had even more examples. So I had to share them with you today because they're so inspirational. We'll go back to our inspirational reading again. I did a lot of inspirational reading for today's topic. But there's a Canadian bobsledder by the name of Lyndon Rush. That's a great last name for a bobsledder, right? Lyndon Rush. And he said he created imagery and credited imagery with helping him keep his head in the game during his training between the 2010 and 2014 Olympic Games. This is what he said. He said, I've tried to keep the track in my mind throughout the year. I'll be brushing my teeth or in the shower. It just takes a minute. So I do the whole thing, or sometimes, the whole track, or sometimes just the corners that are more technical. You try to keep it fresh in your head so when you do go there, when you get there, you're not just starting at square one. It's amazing at how much you can do with your mind. Yes, it's amazing how much you can do with your mind. Even while brushing your teeth, even while in the shower, you can be replaying, what does this goal look like? What are the steps to get me there? What will be the technical parts that might be difficult? Envisioning it. Here's Emily Cook. Emily is an American freestyle skier, 3-time Olympian, and she was describing how imagery scripts, mental rehearsing, involve all of the senses. So she says you have to smell it, you have to hear it, you have to feel it, everything. She says, I would say it, her whole routine, her whole skiing trip from top to bottom of the mountain. She said, I would say it into a recorder. I'm standing on the top of the hill. I can feel the wind on the back of my neck. I can hear the crowd. She said, I'm going through all these different senses and then actually going through what I wanted to do for that perfect jump. I turn down the in-run. I stand up. I engage my core. She said, I look at the top of the jump. I was going through every little step of how I wanted that jump to turn out. Every step. It's about bringing all of our senses in so that we feel like we are actually there and we have it. Just like what May McCarthy is saying in our book, The Path to Wealth. Using all of our senses. Feeling as if it's already done. It's already happened. Nicole Dentling, she was a sports psychologist, but she worked with our United States Olympic team, and she explains that how important it is to have the multi-sensory approach when visualizing. She says, the more an athlete, the more you can imagine the entire package, the better it's going to be. Yeah. So Michael Phelps, like I said, 22 medals, including 18 gold, and I knew he had used the power of guided imagery to prepare him for his success. And so I looked it up, and guess what? It says that Bob Bowman, who's almost as famous as Michael Phelps. Bob Bowman was Michael Phelps' coach starting from when he was a teenager. And Bob Bowman started Michael Phelps on mental imagery, on visualizing since he was a teenager because he knew it could contribute to his success. It's so cute. He said, cute. I mean, I thought it was cute, but the term they used, Bowman instructed Phelps to watch a mental videotape of his races. So every day, before Michael Phelps went to sleep, and as soon as he woke up in the morning, he ran his mental videotapes. Phelps would visualize every aspect of swimming, of a successful race. He would start from the blocks. How are my toes? How are my feet? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? What am I looking at? Every little bit from that starting block to culmination and celebration. What does it feel like when I've won this race? What do the numbers look like? How does the cheering? What do the crowds sound like? Every part of it. A mental videotape when he went to bed and when he woke up, from the starting block to celebration. And during training, Bowman would instruct Phelps to put in the videotape during their training sessions to help motivate Michael Phelps to push harder, to do better. So that's like us. We can put in our videotapes, our mental videotapes, whenever we're in the hard places, whenever we feel like, oh, I can't do it. I'm getting stuck. Maybe it's too much to ask for. Put in the mental videotape. Here's what else Bob Bowman said. He said, we figured that imagery was best to concentrate on these tiny moments of success and build them into mental triggers. It's more like his habits had taken over. The actual race was just another step in a pattern that started earlier that day and was nothing but victories. Winning became a natural extension of his visioning. You can't help but win when you've already been practicing what the winning feels and looks like. And so we can apply that to our own lives. I looked at sports visualization expert, there's an expert in this, Dr. Patrick Cohen, and he says, here's the 3 steps. And they're just like what May McCarthy points out too. But he does it even, I think, more specifically, I'll give you another perspective here. So he says the first one is visualize the outcome you want. When you mentally rehearse, he says, your performance in your head, make sure you see the event as you want it to unfold. If your mental images turn negative, stop the tape, rewind, and restart the visualization again as the performance you want to see, as the goal you want to see. So I think sometimes that's where we get stuck, right? Because we may be like, oh, I'm visualizing this goal of mine, this brand new house, this new car, and oh, now I'm hitting a roadblock. So that's it. God doesn't want this for me. But that's not what stops an Olympian. The Olympians don't get stuck there because they've already looked at what could possibly go wrong. How can I write it and still get to success? So we stop as soon as we hear the negative talk. As soon as we start visualizing what could go wrong, how can this get negative, we stop the mental tape, we rewind, and we restart the visualization again to see the performance, the goal, the outcome, the way we want to see it. Step 2, he says, use all your senses. This is what we heard from some of those Olympians. Use all your senses from a first-person perspective. Visualize your sports performance in detail, or visualize your performance, your goal in detail. What would you see? What would you hear? What would you feel? What would you smell? What would you taste? If you want a new home, what does the bathroom tile, what is the color and what is the pattern of that bathroom tile? What kind of finishes do you have? Do you have chrome or do you have brass? I mean, get specific. Does it smell like baked cookies? Does it smell like lavender? The roses from outside? Get specific. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? What do you smell? What do you taste? He says, feel how your body would feel as you go through the motions of your performance, of your goal. Try adding in some physical movements that coincide with the visual images. Feel the excitement of successfully fulfilling your performance goal. Feel the excitement of successfully fulfilling your performance goal. And then step 3, Dr. Cohen says, practice frequently. He says, mental rehearsal is a skill that becomes better with repetition. Practice your visualization or imagery daily. Michael Phelps, before he goes to bed, when he wakes up in the morning. And we know this in the New Thought world, right? In the New Thought world, we've known about the power of visioning, the spiritual power or attribute of imagination for a long time. I quoted Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, earlier with the 12 powers of man, but even modern New Thought legend, Reverend Michael Beckwith with Agape. He says, visioning is a meditative process that allows us to see our lives through the mind and heart of God. Ooh, I love that. Visioning, he says, helps us connect to our soul's purpose, the divine pattern within us. There's a divine pattern within us. And so visioning helps us connect to that. Visioning helps us connect to the mind and heart of the divine. In the book Wisdom Walk, Dr. Sage Bennett says, like a gardener who plants seeds in fertile earth and trusts the law of growth, so can each of us think thoughts and trust the spiritual laws of manifestation. Our thoughts take root and flower, just like seeds in the garden. So what seeds are you planting in your garden? What seeds are you planting in your garden? Because we can use the power of imagination, of visioning, either from our sense and human personal consciousness, or we can use the power of imagination and visioning from our higher consciousness. In our workbook from Heart Center Metaphysics by Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck, there we go, he talks about how we're always using the power of visioning and the power of imagination. So when we're using it from a sense or human consciousness, our very human selves, then we're using the ability to picture how unworthy we are, and then therefore that's what gets demonstrated. But when we use this ability from our spiritual consciousness, from our higher consciousness, from our divine knowing of who and what we really are, then we're using the ability of imagination, of visioning, to picture, imagine, picture, conceptualize how it looks like to be the best divine being we can be. The best divine being we can be. Isn't that awesome? The power of imagination, the power of visioning is always working. It's always working. It's always working. So are you going to use the power from your little self, your human self consciousness, or from your higher self, spiritual consciousness? You get to decide. I know in my life, I recognize that there have been times I've used this power in both ways, from my ego human consciousness and from my higher self spiritual consciousness. And so I just want to say to everyone out there right now, it's okay. It's okay. This is not about beating yourself up. This is about just saying, okay, I'm going to be gentle with myself here. I'm going to catch myself and plant a new seed. Catch myself and plant a new seed. Remember, we're going to stop the tape, rewind, and start the imaging again. Just pull out the weeds. I can plant a new seed at any time. Pull out the weeds, just like an Olympian. Here was the quote. If your mental images turn negative, stop the mental tape, rewind, and restart the visualization again to see the performance you want to see. Yeah, to see the performance you want to see. Jonas Salk, the scientist, said, "Hope lies in dreams, in imagination, and in the courage of those who dare to make dreams into reality." I know you have the courage within you to tap into that higher consciousness and to make your dreams a reality. I know you do. I know you can fly. So envision it, imagine it, experience it. And so here is a song by Rick Howling to remind us we can fly.